Well, my friends, welcome. Welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you as always by Camel Cigarettes. Take the Camels Challenge, smoke Camels for 30 days, and see for yourself what a difference Camels can make in your life. But my friends, it's hard to continue the show when the news is so good. I mean, here we are in Michigan. Governor Whitmer just signed a bill making necrophilia a crime. We had a case recently where a man uh, purposely ran down a 60-year-old woman and dragged her body into the woods for sex. He was convicted of murder and sent to prison for life, but the family was unhappy that he couldn't be charged with a sex crime. So the legislature agreed, and now we have a law against necrophilia in Michigan. I can sleep better at night now knowing that there's a law against having sex with dead people. And I have to tell you, I'm in full agreement with this law. I don't believe that dead people should be molested. Uh, and the Democrats are on top of the world. The Ukrainians are beating the Russians. The British have a Labour government. The Olympics are demonstrating that COVID is no obstacle to a gold medal. Don't let COVID stop you from going to work or a date or a concert. If Noah Lyle can do it, so can you. I mean, how can I keep droning on about the bad news? Of course, despite the Olympics, it was another week of very bad news. And the week coming up looks pretty dismal. Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, was assassinated on Wednesday by an explosive device covertly smuggled into Tehran guest house that's run by the Revolutionary Guard. So, under normal circumstances, I get a little tickle out of this assassination. He was a guest of the Ayatollah and his Revolutionary Guard, which is about as secure as you can get in Tehran, and they blew the whole thing up and killed him. And I mean, as far as people who deserve to die, he's a good candidate for that. And I suspect that a retaliation, we've been waiting for retaliation and everybody's really nervous about that. And I'm pretty sure that retaliation is going to come this week on Tisha B'Av. Monday night begins the 25-hour fast of Tisha B'Av, the ninth day of the month of Av, the day on which both the first and second temples were destroyed. It's one of the darkest days in Jewish history. And it's not all coincidence. The Yom Kippur War didn't start on Yom Kippur by accident. People who hate the Jews take their history and culture seriously. Most people don't know anything about Jews or hardly anything about Jews or Judaism. But when you when you go to Nazi rallies, when you spend your time with people who really hate the Jews, they know Jews. I mean, they're not just hating something that they have no idea what it is. So it's not a really coincidence, and I have a feeling that the retribution will come on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, by the way, was not just the destruction of the temple. In 1096, the first Crusades began on Tisha B'Av. In 1290, the Jews were expelled from England on Tisha B'Av. In 1306, the Jews were expelled from France. In 1648, there were these huge pogroms in Eastern Europe, which really was the beginning of the end of the Eastern European Jewish community. In 1882, the pogrom swept through the Pale of Settlement in Russia. And in 1914, World War I began on Tisha B'Av. And the 1942, the Wannsee Conference was scheduled for Tisha B'Av. And there's in his famous Igeret HaMusar, I went to Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim. I went to a Musar yeshiva. I've said this before, I was just privileged. I went to high school. We started our classes in the morning. We would get up and say our morning prayers, and then classes would start around 8:30 in the morning, and they went till 6:30 in the evening, and it was 6 days a week, and so it was really intensive study, and it was a Musar yeshiva. The yeshiva was a transplant from Eastern Europe and was guided by the principles of Rabbi Israel Salanter, the founder of the Musar movement, and which is basically just a focus on ethical culture. The point was that you want to develop ethical human beings, and you recognize that someone can be very, very religious and still be a really nasty, mean, ugly person. And that being religious is not the same as being ethical and sensitive and morally sensitive to other human beings and compassionate. So Rabbi Israel Salanter was concerned that that education, religious education, should focus on the character of the children. You want them to grow up to be really good, decent human beings. So in that letter, he pointed out that the Second Temple was destroyed because of, in the Talmud. In fact, I'm just reading it in today's Gemara, but some time ago, the Talmud asks, the why was the Second Temple destroyed? And they said it was because of the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. And here's the story. There was a guy named Kamsa, and he had an enemy named Bar Kamsa. And he told his servant, I'm making a big party. I want you to go out and invite Kamsa to my party. And so the servant went out and he mistakenly invited Bar Kamsa to the party. So Bar Kamsa comes to the party, and the host of the party, who hated Bar Kamsa, he loved Kamsa, he hated Bar Kamsa. So he goes over to Bar Kamsa and says, hey, so you shouldn't have been invited here. You gotta get out of here. Bar Kamsa says to him, look, I'm here already. I'll tell you what, I'll pay for my meal. Forget it. You're not paying for your meal. You're gonna, all right, look, I don't want to be embarrassed. I'll pay for half of the party. Just let me be. No, no way. Okay, listen, I'll pay for the whole party. No way. Takes him and he tosses him out. And Bar Kamsa is really humiliated and angry. And he goes to the Romans to complain about the Jews. And that's what led to the destruction of the temple. The story is apocryphal, and it's meant to say what Yisrael Salanter was trying to say, is that we were destroyed from within, not from without. And we were destroyed because of sinat chinam, gratuitous hatreds. I mean, this hatred was just, it didn't make any sense at all. And quite often, our hatreds don't really make a whole lot of sense. Especially, I mean, go to a Trump rally and ask these people why they're, what they're hating about, and at the time, there was a group called the Sikari, which were a terrorist group, and they were inside Jerusalem. They assassinated moderates. They extorted, they robbed, they murdered, they kidnapped, and they to Jews and Romans. And when Jerusalem was being besieged, they burned the food supplies, figuring that would motivate the people inside, to fight harder against the Romans. The rabbi in Jacksonville gave his sermon Shabbos about this, saying that he didn't worry about the Iranians. He was worried about the Israelis, because Israeli society is at the point where Israelis are ready to murder each other. There was an incident in which a group of soldiers were arrested by the army for torturing Palestinian prisoners who might or might not have been terrorists. But he said, what if they were terrorists? I mean, Israel captured and tried Eichmann and treated him always throughout the whole thing, like a human being. They didn't torture him. So when the IDF charged these soldiers with torture, then the army base itself was besieged by the radicals, and it encouraged. Some of them were Knesset members and members of Netanyahu's cabinet. Praised the whole thing. It was a disastrous scene in which you could see that Israeli society. What we have to worry about is the internal dissent within Israeli society, rather than worry about the outside. Although, if you're outside, you might want to worry too about what's coming, because the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists just did a whole study of American attitudes towards nuclear weapons. They replayed a survey that was done in the United States after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Americans were asked what they thought about the use of nuclear weapons. And they took those same questions and they repeated them. They asked them to 2,000 people today in interviews, and then followed up. And once again, you see that if you believe that we wouldn't think that nuclear weapons are actually can be used, because there's an argument that's made that no one would be out of their mind, no one would be so insane. Look, we haven't used them yet. Pakistan and India didn't use them in the wars that they fought. So since no one has used a nuclear weapon since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it couldn't possibly happen. Nobody would dare to do it. And the bulletin seemed to think that that was placing a hope in that was a little bit flimsy. So I've been thinking about my mother, and I told a story about I was in psychoanalysis. I had a really good world-class Freudian scholar who I spent 2 years in traditional kind of Freudian psychoanalysis. I would ride an hour and a half to Lansing, Michigan, and an hour and a half back, 3-hour ride, and spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes more, with Bert. And it was in conversation with him that I told the story about my mother before her death, confessing to me that she had always felt guilty that she was the cause of my suffering because she fed me food that was spoiled. And the doctors really tried to make it very clear to her that spoiled food didn't cause my nephritis, that was a matter of as congenital, had nothing to do with the food. But she couldn't accept that. And Bert very perceptively commented that she preferred to believe that she was responsible rather than to believe that the universe was utterly indifferent and completely unpredictable. And coming back to this idea of conspiracy theories, it seems to me that rather than believe that all the things that are happening around us are out of our control, rather than believe that the universe is indifferent to our existence, we would much rather believe that we are responsible for our demise and that there is a God in the universe, that there's justice in the universe, and we can bring about our own demise. That would be preferable than to simply go extinct the way the dinosaurs did, where some rock hits the earth and knocks us out. So last week we had elections, and for this, let me just bring this thing up and I'll show you a share of my screen. Yeah, so this is Teresa. She was running against the county commissioner. We have had a bunch of these people. Their slogan on all their signs are, restore confidence. Because nobody has any confidence anymore because our leaders have all voted for the Chinese Communist Party. So you understand there's a big multinational corporation coming in here to build a battery factory. And it's a Chinese factory, so this is run by the Chinese communists, and so what you had is all these people running, and and around here, all you have to do is say, I'm standing here against the Chinese communists. So, Chris won. He got 200 votes. She got 100 votes. It's not exact, but something like that. But it just shows, and in Green Township, the last election, they wiped out the entire government and replaced them with maggots who were going to, they were dedicated to fighting communism. It's liberty, and the signs around town are, fight for liberty. We have to fight for liberty and against the Chinese communists. And so they took over Green Township, and the township had signed contracts with this multinational billion-dollar corporation, and now they wanted to renege on the contracts. And so, the corporation didn't like that either, and they took them to court. And so they blew the entire treasury of the county on legal fees, and of course they lost everything. And in the last election, a bunch of them were replaced. That people are just getting over the shock of what they had done. But all you have to do is put up a sign that says, vote for me because I'm opposed to the communist Chinese. And and you too can be elected. It's a very fragile system that we have, especially on the local level. And literally, I see, Chris got 200 and something votes, and she got 120 votes. So it was, not very many people vote. There were a number of people came out to vote. About 30% of the population came out to vote. We were voting for primaries for the Senate and other things. So there were lots of local elections and millages, but most people just don't care about that. And you put up a sign and say, that I'm standing here against the communist Chinese, and that motivates my neighbors. Because I think we would rather believe that all our woes are caused by some insidious and nefarious agents, and that we have agency and can stand up against them. And all we have to do is, vote to stand up for liberty and against the communist Chinese here in Big Rapids, Michigan. So I was saying something about thinking, about mulling over a problem. Thinking is something that you do when you have a problem in front of you that you don't know the answer to. And what I have been thinking about for quite some time now is the problem that faces me every day. How do you live once you give up the idea that there's a God in the universe and that we have a future and that there will be redemption? Once you give up believing that we have agency, how do you proceed? How do you proceed with your life? You still have to take another breath, and you still have to go out, as Karen and I did on Friday, and we rode for 40 miles. It was a fabulous run. I'm doing a lot of bulking up. It's really amazing. I'm lifting weights, and I'm working out 6 days a week. And when you're near the end, that's no time to slow down. This is it. You want to squeeze every little bit of life that you can get out of your existence, because it's not going to last. And that's just the way it is. There's just no stopping the demise. And I really, I've been following on Reddit this r collapse, this subreddit, and my heart goes out to these kids, born in the 1990s and 2000, who recognize, as I do, that their future has been destroyed, and trying to find a way forward. And I believe that I have the answer. Take the Camel's Challenge, Smoke camels for 30 days and see for yourself what a difference camels can make in your life. And with that, I will leave you for this week. I know it's late. I bet many of you must have been despairing that I'd get on here, but I did make it. It's getting really difficult to do these things. As I say, Monday night begins Tisha B'Av, and there's a lot of work that goes in to preparing for Tisha B'Av. I'll just show you here. It's just, I told you all the nasty things that happen on Tisha B'Av. Well, first of all, you got your Tisha B'Av files, right? You got to get your Tisha B'Av files out, and then you got your Tisha B'Av Machzor, Tisha B'Av prayer book, right? And then you have the Book of Lamentations, with all the commentaries, and then you have the laws and regulations for Tisha B'Av. So usually I begin at Shiva Sabakamas. 3 weeks ago was the beginning of this 3-week period of mourning. It becomes more and more intense, and it's really a very serious. It's extraordinary that you have a tradition that tells you, okay, Monday night you're going to be sad. You're going to be sad until Tuesday night. Then you can be happy after that. But you're not going to eat. You're not going to drink. You're not going to have sex. You're not going to wear clean clothes. You're not going to take a shower. You're not going to brush your teeth. You're going to clean the tips of your fingers in the morning and rub a little water on your eye. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to spend the entire day, no food, no water. You're going to read the Book of Lamentations, and you're going to hunker down until this very bad day comes to an end, and see what you can wring from the contemplation of our own self-demise. So with that, I'll leave you this week, and I'll see you next week. Have a good week, and if you're fasting, have an easy fast.